Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the San Francisco News TV News Show. My name is Diane Wesley Smith. Top of the news: housing crisis in San Francisco. You know, as a native San Franciscan who grew up in the Bayview in the Hunters Point housing projects and in the Bayview, it really saddens me to have driven through the Hill where I grew up. I grew up at 45 West Point Road, and I drove through the Hill just several times recently, and it is just very, very interesting. I made a phone call before we started the show to speak to one of my neighbors on the Hill to find out how many people are actually being removed from the house. How many people are actually moving into the new places? The reason I talk about the housing projects in Bayview Hunters Point is because it's symbolic of what will happen in Potrero Hill, Sunnydale, Double Rock we know as Alice Griffith. It began in Valencia Gardens. And I am all for a new and improved San Francisco. What I'm concerned about is the housing crisis. You know, I'm fortunate to be a homeowner only by God's grace and some hard work, and I got involved in the system that governs me. So I returned to school to pursue my dream of becoming a real estate broker and helping others to do the same. So now I own a home where I used to play. It was in the dirt called KYA Hill. We didn't have playgrounds, so most of the time we had some playgrounds. But once you moved off the hill, you played in the dirt. And so a lot of people went up to KY Hill, and I used to spend my dad Bobby Campbell's, because I have two dads. The other is James Wesley Sr., who's still living, thank God. But my point is, I own a home where I used to play. And this is what I want for others. Or I want them to at least remain in the community where they grew up. Be it in Chinatown, be it in Hunters Point, be it in Western Addition. We saw what happened in Western Addition. And it is out of love and passion that I bring you this show today, because I am going to do everything that I can. You know, it saddened me to see so many of my friends looking for, quote unquote, a place to stay. This has been going on for several years, about actually 6 years. It started out with people wanting to know if I had information on how they could move into the new housing. And so I conducted homeowner workshops, credit repair workshops, even conducted some homeowner workshops for the San Francisco Housing Development Corporation. But my point is that I had no idea and that there would not be real or practical affordable housing. What's affordable for one person is not affordable for another. What's affordable for a person that's living in Bayview Heights is not affordable for someone that's living in Double Rock projects. What's affordable for Hunters Point in the remaining projects is not affordable for someone that lives in the Bayview. What's affordable for someone who lives in Dogpatch is not affordable for someone that lives in Potrero Hill. What's affordable for someone who lives in Visitation Valley isn't affordable for someone who lives in the Sunnydale housing projects. I'm sure you get my meaning. You have affordable, affordable, affordable. A practical solution to the housing crisis, which is it's a crisis because there is a lack of affordable housing for various income levels and a lack of inventory. We call it housing inventory. It is just like when you're going to prepare a dinner and you take a survey or you take an inventory. You look at all of the items that you need in order to accommodate the meal or in order to prepare the meal. So we look at the number, as real estate professionals, we look at the number of people needing affordable housing, then we look at how much affordable housing we have. Right now, families can't afford what's called affordable housing. Right now, affordable housing is geared for people that make around $40,000 to $50,000 a year. Now, some of us do, but most of us don't. Let me rephrase that. Those that do not cannot afford this type of affordable housing. So we must have a practical solution. And that would entail several tiers. You have your low income affordable housing, your low income affordable housing first, your low income, your low middle class, your middle class, etc., etc. But we must have several levels, and we can do it. We definitely can do it. When I say we, that's you and me working with the system that governs us. Now, I've been investigating the affordable housing fiasco. In other words, affordable housing for those who make, roughly $45,000, $50,000 a year. And that's how I came to the obvious conclusion that we have a serious crisis. There's a lot of construction slated. A lot of homes are going to be built, a lot of condos, a lot of apartments. We need more apartments. We need the inventory for affordable housing to serve the needs of our young people, first our senior citizens, our young people, our families, our middle-aged who have one foot on the job and the other foot facing retirement. They can't afford the rental. Let's strike buying. They can't afford to rent under these current conditions. They cannot afford to remain in San Francisco under these current conditions. Housing inventory must include housing that is affordable for our seniors, again, families, young adults, and the middle-aged, as well as the disabled. It's heartbreaking to drive down the streets of San Francisco or constantly receiving phone calls or requests at my real estate agency from people asking me about apartments or a place to stay, which, as I mentioned, it's increasing. Initially, people said, Diane, I'm looking for an apartment. Do you handle apartments? Because I primarily, at that time, handled home sales, residential home sales. Later, people are just asking if I can just help them find a place to stay. I've had enough, and I will do what I can with your help to change this sad situation. With cultural diversity on both sides, between the haves, the have-nots, the have a little bit, the new Americans, the first generation, second generations, etc., on both sides. Also with the system that governs us, the political system. So if all of us have cultural sensitivity, and that is to treat each other with dignity and respect, and then there's no reason that we cannot have the integrated San Francisco with room for people from all income levels, with the exception of those that would undermine our safety, don't want to work for a living, don't want to advocate for jobs, want to hang on the streets, sell drugs, or undermine the cleanliness of our city streets. And I want to take a moment right now. I've been noticing a lot of young people of all colors, from all socioeconomic backgrounds, littering. There are trash cans. If you cannot find a trash can, please wait until you can and hold on to your trash. The streets are not trash cans. That's a level of self-esteem. This is where you live. Don't litter where you live. It's not only inside your home, it's outside of your home. And I also say this to adults. I've seen people my age, so word to the wise is sufficient. There was a campaign once that called, it was about litter, and it said, if you see litter, point it out. Well, now let's find a respectful way to point it out to someone who's disrespecting our streets. Because you know what? A lot of people just aren't aware. My Aunt Lottie used to say, baby, if they knew better, they would do better. And I argued with her, and she kept saying, baby, if they knew better, they would do better. And that applies across the board. I don't care if it's in City Hall, I don't care if it's at the White House, I don't care if it's in my home, I don't care if it's me. And speaking of that, because we have a new year approaching us, and some of you will view this in the new year, I want to take this time to apologize to anyone who I have offended because of my passion and my determination and my love for San Francisco, and that San Francisco goes in the right direction, treating all of its citizens with dignity and respect. I ask your forgiveness. And because I know better, I will do better. So when I call names, it will be in a positive light. Otherwise, I'll call you personally on the telephone. You know, in 2004, I started telling people that this day was coming when there would be a lack of inventory, where there wouldn't be a place for them to live, where they couldn't afford. The situation would be that such that they wouldn't have the ability to afford to remain in San Francisco. And especially the low-income and the middle low-income class families, that they would be pushed out of San Francisco in significant numbers. Now, people understood me, but I held workshops, as I mentioned. The first ones were on my own dime, and then later for the San Francisco Housing Development Corporation, and then I held others, and I still continue to hold workshops. Now they're primarily for credit repair, to educate people, on how to plan for the social and economic change that is in San Francisco. It is only going to increase. I'm happy to be a part of it, and I want you to be a part of it as well. It's unfortunate that so many had to wait until the grim reaper of eviction and relocation came to their door before realizing that if you're not at the table representing your housing interests or supporting those who are, then you're on the menu and slated to be removed from San Francisco. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's some devious plot, and I'm just saying to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And that could mean politically, educationally, increasing one's marketable skills by returning to school, like people like myself had to do, checking your credit score to make sure that you do everything necessary to increase your FICO score, or all the above, and then some. Now let's talk about FICO score for a minute. Very interesting. The definition of a FICO score. It's a type of, most of you know, but let's just visit this again. It's a type of score that makes up the substantial portion of your credit report that lenders use and landlords to determine an applicant's credit risk, and to whether or not to extend the loan, extend the credit, or whether or not to rent an apartment or a home. The FICO score is an acronym. An acronym means that it stands for something. Each initial stands for something. And the FICO score is the Fair Isaac Corporation, the creators of the FICO score. F for fair, I for Isaac, CO for company. Using mathematical models, the FICO score takes into account various factors. Each of these 5 areas determine the credit risk: payment history, current level of indebtedness, or how much money one owes versus how much money one has paid, types of credit used, length of credit history, and new credit. A person's FICO score will range between 300 and 850. In general, a FICO score above 650 indicates that the individual has very good credit history. People with a score below 620 will often find it substantially more difficult to obtain a loan or to rent an apartment. To obtain, favorable financing, that means financing with a good interest or low interest rate. Some people are of the opinion that FICO scores are even used in hiring. My point is, we must unite and participate in the system that governs us. We want something better for the next year. We want something new for the new year. We must unite and participate in the system that governs us. Right now, the unemployed and the underemployed aren't attending the Board of Supervisors meetings, planning Land Use, San Francisco Public Utilities, or the replacement agency for the redevelopment called the San Francisco Mayor's Office of the Office of Housing and Economic Development. They're not attending any of those meetings, and when they have time on their hands. Those of us that get involved have a far better outcome than those who do not. Everything my husband and I have is by God's grace and by active involvement in the system that governs us. San Franciscans who commit themselves to attending meetings downtown, not in the neighborhood, but downtown, will find the officials downtown really do listen, and they will respond if you consistently make your wishes heard in a dignified and public manner in the public forum of these meetings. Get to learn how these meetings operate. How do you do that? Find out when the meetings are. You can call 311 and find out when any meeting starts, or get a copy of the meeting schedule. Organize with other people that feel the same way, or go by yourself. I am a public testament and witness to the power of one. You can even Google the power of one. Rosa Parks, her courage, the courage she demonstrated, that began with the power, she began with the power of one, and it was a ripple effect across the country that affected the entire world. It starts with you. It starts with the individual. Organize, or just show up. Show up for yourself, and show up for others who can't show up for themselves. It's not too late to participate and change your destiny. Also, of course, it helps. This is very, very important. It helps when you are, and they know that you are a registered participating voter. Also, felons, those of you who have paid your debt to society, meaning you have served your time for the crime that you committed, you are no longer on parole, you may register and vote. Those of you that are felons that have paid your debt to society, your group alone showing up can make a change. You can fight and advocate for yourselves, and others will also benefit from that. Sometimes I think that everyone is waiting for the bridge to break down before they come to action, if at all. How many families must we lose? How many residents must be pushed out, evicted, before San Franciscans stand up for their rights for practical, affordable housing? Do not be fooled. When you hear the term affordable housing, make it a point to find out what's the income level. When they say median, what does it mean? You need numbers. The word affordable needs to be practical. Practical must come before the word affordable. Again, what's affordable for one person is not affordable for a family. Or what's affordable for one is not affordable for another. When decision makers plan, they consider the voting population. If you're not registered to vote and not voting, they don't even consider you. Believe me when I tell you. They know who's voting, they know what groups are voting and what groups aren't. And that's who they're responding to. So those of you who say, you know what, my vote doesn't make a difference, I'm not going to register, think about that. If for no other reason, you register so your voice can be heard in the city where you live, in the state where you live. Because at the end of the day, it comes to your doorstep. It affects everything from your utility bill to the employment rate to the safety in your community and in your home. One essential component to remain in San Francisco is becoming part of the solution, not part of the problem. San Francisco is growing and changing. Those of us that want to be part of the solution will remain and are remaining and have remained. Some have left of their own volition or their own choice, but they still participate and they still come back home to help us. In recent weeks, I want to share this with you. Still, we're talking about our topic. It's the housing crisis in San Francisco. In recent weeks, the San Francisco Unified School District held a series of community forums to ask parents what they think their kids need in order to thrive in school. The meetings were held as part of a policy-making process leading up to next year renewal of 2 years of leading up to 2 years of funding. Two important funds. It's the Children's Funds and the Public Education Enrichment Fund, which amount to some $10 million in both funds combined. The parents weren't exactly asking for more museum field trips for their kids. During the breakout sessions where facilitators wrote up groups' comments on flip pads, a few recurring themes emerged. In other words, they had several different groups that broke out from the general meeting, and each meeting came out with some of the same statements, and that was job security for parents can help their children thrive in school. Affordable housing. Now, these are parents with families. So again, we go to affordable housing for families, which we don't have enough of. I mean, it's so minuscule, we have a lot of work to do. It says, another parent stated, it's a shame we have to talk about the lack of affordable housing, digesting the findings, the lack of affordable housing. She said a report digesting the findings of stakeholder focus groups distilled the pressures facing families. Many participants commented on the extraordinarily high cost of living in San Francisco. It noted, which contributes to both the financial and emotional strain on the part of many working class and lower income residents, which puts undue stress on parents, thereby putting undue stress on children. And they said they don't understand, given the wealth of the corporations in San Francisco. Yes, much is still left to be done. Much is still left to be done. But we can do it. Now, I want to say special thanks to this. Again, this is Diane Smith, and if you tuned in before we started, you're watching the San Francisco News TV show. We have been in existence for about 6 years now. We've had various names, but San Francisco News TV, because people wanted to know what's going on in San Francisco. They're always asking. So that's how we have this name, and we've been San Francisco News TV for almost 4 years now. A little over 4 years, actually. I want to give special thanks, first of all, to God, who without him, all the miraculous things that have happened in my life would not have been possible. And he has so much more planned for me. And I just want to do what he has planned for me, which involves helping you and my community and my family. I want to thank my husband, Samuel P. Smith II. I want to thank my dad, James Henry Sr., and my wonderful brother, James Henry Wesley Jr. I want to thank the Smiths for being the family I've always wanted. I want to thank my church family and my Masjid families, particularly Masjid Worthing. I want to thank James Blanding, Mayor Ed Lee, Willie Brown, Malia Cohen, London Breed, David Chu, James Richards, Philip Jackson, LaShawn Walker, and I owe you an apology, LaShawn Walker. You're wonderful. LaShawn Walker is a community real estate professional, and she works for Embassy Realty. Not to undermine that I own AAA Bayview Real Estate and Community Services. Ed Donaldson, hard worker in the community. We've had our differences, but I do want to apologize to you on a group level. And may we go into the new year letting bygones be bygones, because we all want the same things. We want progress. I want to thank Bob Primus, Lolita Sims, two of my first supporters, Bob Primus and Lolita Sims, Jacqueline Bishop, Cynthia Moten, Lynette Sweet, Kathy Davis, Willie and Mary Radcliffe, and the people of San Francisco, especially District 10, Bayview, Hunters Point, Sunnydale, Double Rock, Little Hollywood, Dogpatch, and Potrero Hill. I want to thank AAA Bayview Real Estate and Property Management, which God has blessed me with. All have been the wind beneath my wings. With all of my love to you and my city of San Francisco, you have the power to make 2014 a better year. May God bless you with all things that are good and right for you. Update your voter registration information, participate in meetings downtown, and vote in November 2014. If you like what's been happening, vote. If you want to see changes, participate, because you may still have the ability to vote the same way, but if you're participating downtown, they'll hear your voice. So more importantly, also equally importantly to voting, is participate long before the election so you're fully informed, and by June you won't get caught up in the hype, because baby, the hype is coming. It'll come around June, July, because the election's in November. So let's find out, look at what happened in 2013 and find out who's been operating in your best interest from the heart and from their level of commitment. So I just want to say, God bless you again. God bless you. And I'll see you next time. This is Diane Wesley Smith signing off for San Francisco News TV. Register to vote!